Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles in this episode, but I'm going to talk about Hollywood. I'm going to talk about Hollywood freaking the hell out because we're looking at another merger. We're looking at Warner Brothers getting purchased by somebody. We don't know who yet. We're going to talk about that. We're thinking the Ellisons over at Skydance. But regardless, that means there probably will be a lot fewer jobs, and Hollywood has been freaking out lately because the jobs are drying up. Oh my gosh, who could have foreseen that? After the strikes, they weren't hiring as many people as they used to hire because everybody costs a lot more, right? They're shutting down productions, they're outsourcing more, they're importing more, they're bringing in anime and K-drama and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, of course, they're going to not be happy about two of the largest studios collapsing into one another, potentially. The most likely scenario so far is Skydance and Paramount acquiring Warner Brothers, and that means there will be a lot of redundancies and probably not nearly as many shows being greenlit. You're not probably going to have multiple streaming services. If that happens, they would probably merge Paramount with HBO or whatever. And, yeah, there might not be as many movies. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath, guys. I mean, this is basically Hollywood Highlander, and we've been talking about it for a couple of years. We said this is not sustainable. Everybody said we're being overdramatic, but here we are. This is an article from Bloomberg yesterday. Yesterday, I think it came out. It's never been harder to get a job in Hollywood. Oh, no, this is actually from a month ago. It's making the rounds again, though. My bad. But, yeah, it's making the rounds. It's never been harder to get a job in Hollywood, and things are going to get so much worse. So we're gonna talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. So this is very interesting. They're talking that the unions, the Writers Guild, remember them, right? We talked about them before. Yeah, the Writers Guild is apparently going to help block a potential Warner Brothers Discovery Paramount merger. They're calling it a disaster. Yeah, because they're not going to get as many dues. There's not going to be as many shows greenlit. They're not going to get the dues that they were getting before. And, we did a video a couple of weeks ago about how they were trying to cast a wider net. They wanted to rope in bloggers and rope in YouTubers and TikTokers and podcasters because they are desperate for dues. So, of course, they're going to be against this because we're probably looking at half as many jobs as there are now. And there's probably half as many jobs as there was 5 years ago, in part because of the strikes, in part because people cost too much, and in part because in their attempt to thwart AI, they actually probably sped up its adoption, which is kind of ironic, right? Like we're gonna hold our breath and turn blue until you guys say you're not going to use AI, or we get to dictate the terms. And they're like, okay, well, while you do that, we're gonna ramp up our usage of AI and make deals with like OpenAI, and yeah, so that really went very well for them. But yeah, this dropped. Yesterday, WGA plans to help block potential Warner Brothers Discovery Paramount merger, a disaster, they're calling it. There actually are some other potential bidders, but everybody thinks it's probably going to be Paramount and Warner Brothers. If for no other reason, the Ellisons own it and they're BFFs with Trump, and it would have to clear regulatory hurdles, right? So coming from Deadline, the Writers Guild of America is condemning the potentially disastrous impacts of a merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers. In a joint statement from the WGA East and West sent Thursday, the guilds expressed their intention to block the merger. How are they going to do that? After Paramount's second bid for Warner Brothers was rejected this week, explaining that the acquisition would be a disaster. Merger after merger in the media industry has harmed workers, diminished competition and free speech, and wasted hundreds of billions of dollars better invested in organic growth. I don't completely disagree with this, but I would say that hundreds of billions of dollars was wasted on TV shows, movies, et cetera, things that people did not watch. Things that were staffed with, TV shows that were staffed with like 25 people in the writer's room for like a 6-episode Netflix thing. Very bloated productions. I would say that they're going to look at it from that point of view and be like, yeah, we tried it your way, and guess what? We went broke. We didn't have the profit. This is why Paramount had to sell itself. This is why Warner Brothers is looking to sell itself, because they tried it this way and it did not work out, right? Combining Warner Brothers with Paramount or another major studio or streamer would be a disaster for writers, for consumers, and for competition, and mostly for their dues. Let's be honest. This is about the dues, guys. They want maximum revenue for their union. The WGAW and WGAE will work with regulators to block the merger. Good luck with that. If it winds up being the Ellisons, they're BFFs with Trump, it'll get fast-tracked. They will find a way to make it happen because Trump would be delighted, because if the Ellisons bought Warner Brothers, they probably get CNN too. And Trump hates CNN. And one of these networks would have, because they've already got Barry Weiss in at CBS News. If they got CNN, they would either have to merge them into one unit, which Barry Weiss would probably be in charge of, or they would have to sell it off or shut it down for the merger to go through. Because I think you can only have one news outlet. That's what happened with the Disney Fox deal. They had to separate Fox News from the rest of Fox. So it's News Corp now. It's its own entity, because Disney could not own Fox News and own ABC News. So that is a hurdle. But yeah, if it meant snapping CNN, I'm sure he'd probably fast track it. Multiple sources familiar with the ongoing talks told Deadline that the latest Paramount bid came in at $24 a share, sweeter than the $20 a share a bit more than a week ago. The rejection of Paramount's second bid was followed by a market-moving declaration by Warner Brothers, the company's first confirmation it is indeed for sale. People said, we don't believe it. It's like, how many times has Warner Brothers been for sale, bitch? What do you mean you don't believe it? What do you mean you don't believe it? They're sold like every other year, right? But they're already saying they're going to help try to stop this from happening again. This has everything to do with the deuce. These are anonymous comments on Deadline. A lot of these people are industry people. That's why it's anonymous. But these are some of the comments. The streamers completely upended the industry. Yes, that's unfortunate. The major studios didn't anticipate the shift when they still had the opportunity to be at the forefront or at least stay competitive. What happened was they all got greedy. Because they saw how much money Netflix was making. And they're like, you know what? Netflix is making a bunch of money off of our content. We should be doling out that content and making all the money. The problem is everybody had the same idea. They all had the same idea. So they all started their own streaming services, and consumers got overwhelmed. They got burnt out. They spent massive amounts of money trying to win the streaming wars, and most of them failed. They crashed and burned. Even Disney took a massive loss on streaming, but they've got other business divisions that can kind of prop it up. Same with Peacock. Peacock was a dud, initially. And they were able to survive because Comcast bankrolls them, right? And Skydance, the Ellisons have deep pockets. And what's going to be really interesting, though, is the Ellisons might wind up owning, and it's kind of scary when you think about it, they might wind up owning Paramount and Warner Brothers and TikTok, or part of TikTok, before it's all said and done. So, it's going to be wild. And this is what a lot of these left-wing activist journalists are freaking out about, because everything was very left-wing for a while. Now everything is going to be very right-wing for a while. And there's not going to be a place for them. And they're freaking out. And they're over on Blue Sky, but Blue Sky is not pure enough for them. So they're over there like ranting into the void. And now they're attacking the CEO of Blue Sky too. It's crazy. The WGA has been so successful in pushing production out of LA, says Philip Rose. This move should help chase away what production is left in LA, just like the UAW did to Detroit. That'd be the auto workers. That is actually a true statement, because what happens is when everybody costs a lot more, these studios are looking out for their bottom line. They're like, well, then we're going to have to move production elsewhere, right? And I know they just got an infusion of money to try to keep production in California, but it's still incredibly expensive. That's why they're all looking at building studios in like Texas and Florida and Arizona and Nevada. I mean, anywhere but California. It's too damn expensive. And you don't have to. You don't have to film in California. But it's weird because when we were kids, like 90% of the TV shows we watched were clearly filmed somewhere in Los Angeles. Like every show was in Los Angeles, even if it was supposed to take place someplace else. It was clearly LA, right? Even if it was an alien planet in Star Trek, it was clearly LA, right? All the planets just happened to look like San Bernardino or something. It was crazy. Yeah, anonymous. Yeah, the WGA has a good track record for improving things. No, good. People are calling this out. People are calling this out. We said this would happen. We said if you threaten the studios and you shut Hollywood down for a year, they're not going to play ball with you. And I think that contract extension, that might be one of the last contract extensions. I have to wonder how long until all the production gets moved out of Hollywood, out of LA. And then they're just like, you know what? We're not working with unions anymore. We don't have to. They went to Georgia. They didn't have to work with the union, right? I don't think they had to. They're going to go elsewhere and be like, yeah, we're not paying people twice as much, and we're not hiring a minimum, number of writers. The WGA was the most ridiculous. I would say they were even more ridiculous than SAG-AFTRA. They were like, oh, we need to have 12 writers in the writer's room for every Netflix show, and representation. And then they were threatening Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore is like, well, I'm not breaking any rules. We'll continue doing the show. I'm not going to have writers, so it's not going to be as good, but we're still going to do the show. And Bill Maher did the same thing, and then they threatened him. They said, well, how dare you? And then Barrymore's writers walked off, and it was a huge shit show. So now people are going to look at it and be like, yeah, I'm not going to work with WGA writers because this is what happens. You do something they don't like and they threaten to shut your production down. Yeah, chat GPT, bitches. That's what we're using from here on out. Fox's assets are good. Yeah, they're talking about the Fox Disney thing. They let that happen. That was under Trump, right? Warner Brothers is a dump, so is Paramount. Warner Brothers only had one hit, Minecraft. Yeah, Warner Brothers is not doing well. Weapons did better than they thought. But again, this company is in massive debt. Massive debt. And basically Warner Brothers Discovery got spun off from AT&T because they were so broke. They had so much debt. So AT&T's like, it looks bad on the books. We're just going to scrape this off the bottom of our shoes and it's somebody else's problem. Jimmy here says, I think the merger is good for theaters because the streaming giant won't put that many films out in the theater. Personally, like Skydance Films. Yeah, Skydance is actually pretty solid, right? Warner Brothers had a good year, but next year doesn't look so strong. Skydance is an arm of the Trump administration. Anyone but them. Yeah, good luck with that. So here's the thing. There might be some other bidders. This is coming from The Verge. They said Netflix, Amazon, Apple are reportedly interested in buying Warner Brothers. If Apple does not get Warner Brothers, I'm going to throw it out there again. This is a huge rumor, so take it with a grain of salt. Still hearing that there might be talks with Apple and Disney. That might be Bob Iger's last deal. I don't know. I'm hearing scuttlebutt, but people said that the Apple Disney thing would never happen because Apple wasn't interested in buying a studio. But if they're interested in buying Warner Brothers, they're interested in buying a studio. I'm just saying. And, they could like pay cash for Disney and not even sweat. They could just like dig in the couch cushions. Disney's a massive company, but Apple is like flush with cash. They could totally just buy it. And there's a lot of history there. And, Steve Jobs was pretty close with Bob Iger, and Iger's on their board and the whole thing. That could potentially happen. And people were like, oh, it's never going to happen. Well, I'm like, well, if they're going to throw in for Warner Brothers, right, they're clearly window shopping, just saying. Netflix, Amazon, Apple are reportedly interested in buying them. Okay, 3 of the rumored potential buyers for entertainment titan Warner Brothers Discovery are tech companies. Yes, this is what's going to happen. Tech is going to buy and dismantle Hollywood, right? I mean, it is what it is. Hollywood replaced theater, kind of, for the most part. I mean, we still Broadway, but it's not what it used to be. And now we've got tech companies and they're going to replace Hollywood. And that's just the way it is. It's just, it's evolution, right? Netflix, Amazon, Apple are all interested in buying Warner Brothers Discovery as a whole or acquiring pieces of the company, like its content libraries and production assets. Yes, they would love to have Bugs Bunny and Batman to use for AI shit, because that's probably what's going to wind up happening, right? Earlier this week, Warner Brothers Discovery announced it was launching a review of strategic alternatives to maximize shareholder value. Light of unsolicited interest in the company it received from multiple parties for both the entire company and just for Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is the only thing that's worth anything, right? People familiar with the matter told Bloomberg Warner Brothers already passed on 3 offers from Paramount. And they said that, they think that there are definitely multiple parties interested. They own HBO, CNN, DC. and Warner Brothers, and Zaslav is basically selling out for scrap at this point. So it could be that, you know, this is Warner Brothers just trying to up their asking price. I think before it's all said and done, it's going to be the Ellisons. I think they're going to control, you know, half of Hollywood at that point. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. But yeah, the reason that the WGA is freaking out, they're freaking out because they're going to lose dues, lots and lots of dues. And I think these unions, these Hollywood unions, are looking at the end for them. I think there might be one, maybe two more 3-year deals, 3-year extensions, and then that's it, because they're not going to be necessary anymore because all the production is going to be moving out of town. Just saying, just a theory I have. Gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later. For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.